All right, so this one we're going to be playing around with the idea of creating something like this. We're going to try to fly through it as fast as possible, but it's not going to be like a fully encompassing tutorial or anything like that. But some of you guys are really fascinated with that Star Citizen mid-poly kind of workflow. This is a low poly, but it's similar-ish. So we'll play around with the idea, all right? And we're not going to get into the decal side of things because I don't have any real decals set up. I might throw some on with decal machine, but first up, let's go over to Affinity Designer. I want to create a trim sheet, okay? A seamless texture and maybe like a trim sheet real quick. I don't want to get too involved in this at all, so I'm just going to do some really basic stuff, like I'm gonna use a corner tool, knock out an edge, this number, right? Anything I create over here, I'm more than likely just going to hold Alt and drag it over to the other side. So it's seamless for the most part. That's about all I'm going to be doing. So, and literally duplicating these and running around with them and setting them up elsewhere. I don't know why that is linked like that. Shouldn't be. Okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, see, it did it again. What the heck? I've been having issues with Affinity Designer lately. I don't know why, but all right, so we'll just draw new shapes then since it wants to be a pain. All I want is just really basic generic stuff. Light grays tossed, one on top of the other. Little gaps here or there. Nothing real crazy, just some really basic ideas of paneling maybe. We'll throw this in Designer in a second. But we are going to use some other programs, obviously. Not going to be able to do everything in Blender. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Probably could do all of it in Blender, but it can be slower for sure. This needs to not be that shape. Take that one. I could have did all these at the same time. Probably should have. Different ratios here, though, I don't think will hurt. Could, eventually. Try something like that. Something a little bit awkward, but it's fun, right? All right, so we got that. Let's do another big section across the middle, maybe. We'll throw it in the very back here. Make it a little bit lighter. I'm going to turn the opacity down on this. Okay. Let's do one here. Drag it over to here. Oh, Shift D, duplicate it. Okay. See how these are all starting to lay out now. This may not be a very good texture by the end of this, but something to work with at least. It'd be a little bit more fun to look at least. Yeah, we're going to leave those about where they're at. We need to make sure they just mostly match. These ones I want on top. Something like that, perhaps. Bring that one. Okay. Nothing real crazy, right? Learn from our mistakes. We are going to not do all those individually. Group, hopefully. All right. Something about there. So this can be real hard to tell what's going on as far as the details go, but I think we'll be all right. The only thing I really don't like is this one, maybe. Too much. Make it mirror the other one for the most part. These should line up with each other. Make it happen. Go. Close enough anyways. So we're going to take this. We're going to save this out. And just think of this as a seamless texture, right? We'll just call it seamless01, save it as an Affinity Photo Designer file. We're going to export the whole thing as a PNG. Could do an SVG for Substance Designer, but not really needed. We'll do a PNG, seamless01. Okay, so that's just one that's knocked out. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. We'll do another one. This one we're going to keep very simple. We're just going to run through it like this. We're going to group those. I'm going to center align them. I should be able to add a stroke to all of these so I get a little bit of paneling action going on. The stroke is very thin. Let's make it bigger. Put it right here. In general, the stroke, by the way, a lot of times it's better to put it on the center, right? But sometimes you need it on the inside or outside. So those little options there exist. That's good. Let's do another panel. We'll just keep it generic again. This big. Substance does have a panel generator, by the way, just so you know. You can try to utilize that, but I want these to be just a little bit more custom, I guess. I can do that. Want like a little bit of like symmetry in here, maybe. Oh, I grabbed the wrong square. Bit of this. In the background, I'm gonna make it pure black. So that way we know what we got going on at least. And we'll do another big panel section over here. I think we'll just do like a mid gray. Okay. Something like that for now. Take all those and group them, center them. Okay, so here's the trick about this. We're gonna actually probably work on this in Designer, right? Substance Design. But this is like an art fundamental thing. Basically, big shapes, medium shapes, small shapes, but patterns as well. So like the edges we can clearly see. We can tell these are tiled out to the left and the right, but usually some kind of pattern is extremely useful. So if you make something like this and like you curve it real quick, make like a beveled hill thing or whatever, right? Make it real light. Um, Running this through like this, right? I'm gonna shift, or it's Control J, the default key, but I'm just gonna, it's with set the shortcut the same as Blender, so it's Shift D or whatever. So there we go, and I can line those up. You see they don't quite go to the edge exactly where they need to. There we go. Something like that. That's gonna go a long way. Set the pass through. I might want to just knock it back a little bit. You see they don't match the panels underneath. That's not good. So I'm gonna grab them and just try to get them to work in the right areas, hopefully. So I might have to hold Control, select one. I'm just gonna delete these. All right. So you'll see how this works out here. This pattern is going to work much better than if they were just left blank. You could do that with other things too. So, wanted to use the pen tool. Do a number like this real quick. I think the biggest problem with Affinity is that the mirroring system kind of good. They actually take a shape like this. What you do is you just duplicate it real quick. You can right click, transform, flip horizontal, grab both the shapes, and you can just add them together. That's kind of how you mirror here. Still works. Something like that real quick. Not such a big deal. In that background, I don't really need a pure black. You can darker gray maybe. These bottom ones, we're gonna add a curve to it. A corner, I mean. If I can get a hold of all of them. Go. So this should work out just fine. Let's do temper. Boom. And it probably wouldn't hurt to grab all of these as well, duplicate them. I'm going to use the contour tool. I'm going to push them in a little bit, make them stick out a little like that. Yeah, so now we're starting to see the patterns come out, right? Really simple shapes too, guys. There's really nothing complicated about this at all. This here, however, these ones, I'll pull them up, I think. A little bit. I'm going to pull this down, possible. That it should be set. What is it set? It's just opacity. It should work on darken because the color underneath there is darker. So, all right, so we'll save that one as trim. Definitely add more to it. And this is just kind of a quick, easy way to test ideas. This isn't necessarily like the best way to generate materials. Generally, you can get started this way. I'm going to do 2 packages and well, we only need 1 package actually, I think. But we're going to do empty 1024. We'll call one trim 1, and we'll call the other one new substance graph. We'll do seamless 01. Probably should have read correctly. Okay. Okay, so this is seamless. Let's bring it in from file, seamless 01 here, link resource. When it's linked, you can update it in Designer and it'll link or it'll update over here. Trim 01, we still got to set up so we can go ahead and do from file, trim 01 resource. There you go. Really just need to set up that base material real quick. We'll copy it from one to the other. We're not going to get complicated with this at all. We're just going to do base color. We're going to do ambient occlusion, normal, and height. So here's our normal, right? Hook it up. This is going to run out to, at some point, a blur HQ grayscale. Well, I guess I got that node selected. If you have a color node selected, you got to unselect it to find the grayscale version. So blur HQ grayscale for height. Turn the intensity down, quality up. There we go. Base color will probably go into a gradient map. Color it real quick, very simple like. So I'm going to change the background panel section to like a dark brown, mustard yellow, whatever. What does Bob Ross used to say? Yellow ochre. Yeah. The yellow ochre, I guess. And then do a light blue. Last but not least is the ambient ambient, if I could type, ambient HBAO. HBOA, whatever you want to call it. I just make up words. Anyways, so this here, I'm going to copy it so we don't have to set it up again on this one. You can see it. Bam. There you go. It's copied now. Set up. Okay. And so we can go back to trim 01. We'll start on this one. We'll plug it into normal. Oh, this node here, let's turn it grayscale. The image. Just plug it into everything, see what happens. Right click, drag, material, boom. All right, so we're not going to get fancy like with this. Like I was saying, we're just trying to go through it real quick. I'm just going to add whatever grunge they have here. That'll work. And then now we can do the metallic values and whatever else we got in here to play with. So roughness, make it more rough, less rough, whatever the case. It should be already metallic, yeah. Metallic's fun to use, but trim, we'll leave it metallic, so turn that roughness down so it's more metallic, more like bare metal almost. Maybe it's got like a tiny little bit of a coating on it for protection or something like that. Okay, and seamless one over here. We still gotta hook up, turn it grayscale. Just gonna hook this one up. We're not gonna preview it, I think. Yeah, we'll preview it. Gotta look at it anyway. This one, we're gonna do a little bit more grunge. I'm gonna turn the roughness up. I'm gonna turn it non-metallic. Play around with this a little bit. Range, don't really care about that. I really just don't want it too glossy. I think that's like that. That'll work for now. And this one, we're gonna crank the normal, I think, on it. The other one we might not. I don't know yet. Like a 20 here. Wait, what did I just type? 20. This is the normal. Not much of a difference, is it? It's because it's so mid-gray. So we could just run it out to a levels real quick. We'll blast the contrast on it. Could do it in infinity, but we'll just do it here. Guess I'm like, there you go. Maybe a little bit better, not really, but let's turn on a little bit of parallax occlusion real quick. Yeah, so there's not much going on here on this one, which is kind of what I wanted, but I feel like it's backwards, this little area. Let's try inverting it and see what happens. Sometimes it looks better inverted for no reason. Readjust the levels though. It's not too bad, is it? Bring down the highlights. Crank the contrast up. Tweak it. Hopefully. Hopefully that works. Lost all my values. Go down here. Yeah, not too bad. Really likes being darker, doesn't it? A little too dark. Not too bad though. It's kind of like a nice gray thing going on. So let's take that blue and make it like a bright yellow maybe. Oh, actually select it. Yeah, like that. So we're gonna do another one in here. I think we're gonna do more of a mid-gray. If we can't crank it to the top a little bit. This will be bottom. It's almost like playing with levels, but it's just a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? Kind of similar, but not really. Yeah, I don't want it too dark. So increase the values here a little bit, and maybe give them a little bit more saturation. Like a desert tan. That's kind of a fun idea, maybe. We'll go with that. Not very interesting as just a material by itself. We could definitely work on this more, but we're going to go ahead and save this one. It should come in with the name of what we named the substance graph. So seamless 01. There we go. We're done. I'm actually just going to export this out to, no outputs, my bad. Right click here. We're going to export after we right click, create output nodes. No. And that's just going to create PBR metallic rough. Actually, let's take that normal and change it to OpenGL. So we don't have to mess with it again. We can save this. We can export. Just going to go to the desktop. Put it in a folder called textures usually. That helps. We'll go over to the trim now. The trim, for the most part, I don't think we need to do a whole lot to it. It probably wouldn't hurt to run this out to a levels as well and plug it into that gradient so we can bump it around and make some of it darker, basically. Generally, shadow maps aren't pure black, or excuse me, shadow maps. Albedos don't have shadows in them, usually. Unless certain cases you'll put them in there, but usually depends on like the game engine or whatever, but I still like to do it anyways. Not technically correct though, just say no. Not too bad. I really want something better for the roughness though. Kind of bugging me a little bit, so we're going to turn roughness on. We're going to take quick texture here. Let's do a noise. We'll do black and white spots. We'll do some clouds. We'll mix them together, blend them. Okay. Plug that right into roughness. Before we do that, let's put it into a histogram grayscale or histogram range. Oh. This allows us to change the range values, so it's like increasing contrast, decreasing contrast, basically. And then we can say change like the overall position as well. We can get something like that going maybe. Change the scales here if needed. That blend is doing nothing right now. Probably should fix that. Mix the two together. Change the blending modes here. Actually, I don't know if I even need to do that. I want to blend them together. I think this seems a little much. Let's do fractal sum base. Should work as well for like a metallic. Pretty decent. Oh, and this normal, we're definitely cranking this one. I don't even know if 20 is going to be enough for this. Maybe 40. 20 is kind of rough, to be honest. A lot of times less is more. But Eevee tends to render things a little bit not as sharp, I guess, or not as it's not as dramatic or okay. We're getting something out of it. I don't know what we're getting. Not enough, and it's too much. It's not like it. Here, we'll go with that. Sometimes substance is really hard to tell what's going to happen in Blender or in a game. It's game engine. It's just kind of I don't know, something about it's just a little bit off every now and then. So what you could try doing is they have um, these pre-made, if I can find them, for the environments. It should even say environment. It should be like right here. Where is it? HDRI environment. All these HDRIs, you can just drag and drop them in the background here. Boom. Changes the HDRI. So if you had actually went and edited your environment, you see the exposure is set right now to 0. We should be able to make it, yeah, visible up there. That's true. So we can see what's going on. This helps a lot, in my opinion. It should be on by default, at least. Maybe they changed it in later versions, but this is one of my favorites from. I don't know where it came from actually, but I know it was in Max, and so it's like actually one of my favorite HDRIs. Actually, took it over to Substance too, so gives you a good idea of like window lighting, what it would look like with some ambient, like indoor lighting, kind of a mix of both, right? Not too bad. Overall, now I think I got a much better idea what's going to happen here. So let's play with that value again. We still want it to be metallic at the end of the day. Still want it to be like super metallic. Yeah. Ooh, maybe we do. I don't know. Yeah. All Yeah, that the normal map is so sharp, so strong. I mean, we could blur it a little. Probably wouldn't hurt it much, but you're gonna have to be very careful with the values there. Just like the other one, blur HQ grayscale. You can see that's because there's so much going on. That intensity goes real low. Quality goes up. We can get away with something like that maybe. And we'll turn that back down because now it has more like side angle basically, like more side facing stuff going on. It should turn out quite well actually. A little bit more blur to it. Some guys like to do this, some guys don't. It's up to you. It's preference, man, ultimately. If you're not working somewhere and they don't have like certain guidelines and rules and quality requirements, it should work out. The roughness itself, this is kind of another thing you can do. Okay, so roughness, I'll make sure I'm grabbing the right one here. We're going to blend it with the ambient occlusion, plug it into roughness, blend it real quick. Multiply is fine because now, hopefully, well, what should have happened, and it doesn't seem it has happened, is the background becomes, oh, we're going to have to invert it. I always forget to invert this thing. You got to invert it, ambient occlusion. There you go. So when you do a multiply, it should, oh, it did not. Let's try this again. We're going to find the values here. I think it's this one. An addition or a subtraction. It's one of these. So this is without, this is with. You can see it doesn't change really, right? But the background should be um, turning more rough, basically. So we can actually adjust this with like a levels or something, or threshold even maybe. But you see, like we can tweak it. All I want to do is kind of blast it and increase the contrast for the most part. Make it as rough as possible, basically. In the background there. Maybe not as rough as possible, but you get the idea. Okay, so far not too bad. Ambient occlusion. I'm going to tighten it up a tiny bit. A little over much, too much. And that roughness is still just a little bit, not quite enough. Yeah, something more like that, right? I don't want to reflect in everything. We want some reflection in it though. Yeah, something like that maybe. All right, we'll leave it there before we spend all day here doing this. Spend all day doing that one, right? Create output. No. Save the file, trim 01. There we go. Let's grab this, right click, export outputs. There we go. Oh, normal map, before we forget. Export an OpenGL. Normal map, change it to OpenGL. Boom. We can save that again. Let's go to Blender. We got one cube. Let's do two cubes. It's easier, in my opinion. New, Control Shift T. If you have Node Wrangler, go to the shading tab. I'm kind of flying through this. Go to the shading tab, create two cubes, Shift D, duplicate it if you need to. Apply material to the one and grab the node, the shader, Control Shift T with the Node Wrangler add-on. You just got to enable it. Boom. And then now we can go to desktop. We're going to find whichever one shows up here first. Seamless. So we'll do seamless. You can see that's the original 01. Here's occlusion. Oh, something that could happen potentially. Well, You might accidentally erase this if you don't have like the tags for like base color and stuff. So just be careful with that, I guess. But we need base color. We need ambient occlusion, metallic, normal, and we'll just actually we don't need metallic on. Oh, no, we don't. So just these ones. Okay, import. You can see for whatever reason lately, ambient occlusion and base color just don't behave anymore. I don't know what's going on with node wrangler or substance. Maybe that's something up, but so I got to Shift A, create a new texture, and then load up the base color. These two are going to get multiplied together. So color mix RGB, and basically you're setting up a shader. So a lot of guys, I want to mention this because I don't think I've even said it before, but like maybe one video. They don't understand that the materials here in Blender don't transfer over necessarily to a game engine. You have to set up your shaders and materials over there. Or press C, you can go to material preview if you're not already in it. So you have to do that. That's just all there is to it. Okay, so we have that set up. These might need to get reversed. I think this is fine, but sometimes you have to flip them. And so this one's going to be the, there we go. It's going to be the seamless 01, right? Do a new one over here, same process. We're going to go with the other one though. You got trim 01 there. Actually, not too bad, huh? This. We don't need height. We don't need metallic. Roughness though, normal. Base color and occlusion. You'll see once again, it does not load up the base color for some reason. All right, so let's do that. Shift A, create color, RGB, plug that in, multiply it, and just max it out. We're not doing any material layer blending, but I'm going to do some videos on it at some point. I just haven't been doing like full projects lately, so it's kind of like not something I've been up to anyways. I need to create a bunch of materials for that kind of stuff anyway. I'm just pressing U and Q, going in edit mode, doing cube project real quick, just so we can see the whole material, make sure they're being set up correct. This was supposed to be metallic, so we got to change metallic to 1. This one is not metallic, so we leave it at 0. Hopefully all the roughness is hooked up to these things. Anything else? You see the normals are at 1, and look, it's like I was saying about Eevee, it doesn't look like much is going on right here, does it? Like it's there, but it's just not, it doesn't really pop out much. So kind of weird how that works, but that's whatever. What I want to do is I want to change the HDRI. You can get HDRIs from all over. I'm pretty sure the ones I'm using, most of them anyways, are from Substance, believe it or not. But I just pulled them over so I can match materials and stuff. You could do that if you want. I'm going to turn world opacity up, and I'm not real sure where the sky one came from, to be honest. I think it's in Substance, but you can turn blur up or down, do all that fun stuff, so material preview will look like something like this. Now, here's the thing. A lot of guys try to work in material preview. I do it even, but the thing is that when you're doing these, you have a lot of reflective surfaces and stuff. It really becomes problematic. If you go to solid view, you can switch solid view over to texture, right? You use matte caps if you want. Generally speaking, less lighting is beneficial sometimes, but use a studio light or like a glossy material, or use like this glossy material, whatever. Something brighter usually can help sometimes. Sometimes it hurts, but I'm gonna stick with my grays, and they're not gonna pop real much. But so we get the idea here that this is the color maps, right? So sometimes Blender can get kind of weird when it comes to showing what texture you want to work with here. Also, I need to get this out of the way. That little file browser thing is dangerous sometimes, and I don't like it up there anyways. But so it's sometimes weird. Sometimes it wants you to actually like just click on a texture and it'll reload it over here. So if it comes in with like a normal map or something, it might do that. But a lot of times you actually have to just take your color map and just straight hook it up over here. Other times it's like maybe swapping it over here will work as well, right? But it's kind of bizarre how it works. I'm not sure what it exactly is going on. I've tried to play with it a bit. I still I just don't know. I don't get it. So whatever. If you have the wrong textures displayed when you're in texture mode, best bet is just to take this texture, hook it up, swap the texture up here probably to your base color. That should update it at some point. I don't know if it will, but it should. So you'll be able to UV map that way, at least here in solid view, and not have to worry about reflections and stuff like that. But we're going to probably use material view anyways. So these are very basic and generic materials. Let's be honest. They're very simple. There's nothing really that fancy with them. And actually, I kind of like that in solid view looking darker. I don't know. Maybe I should have kept it darker. We can always adjust things. We can add a color, bright contrast, or you could do like a color ramp or whatever. But you can always hold shift, tweak the values here. You can see a little too dark on that. Yeah, so we'll match kind of what was going on over there a little bit. So you can add additional refinements here in Blender as well. Just remember it won't transfer to a game engine unless you bake your PBR materials and textures out and all that fun stuff, right? Okay, so that's cool. What do we do? Like, where do we even get started? Don't think about the materials so much right now. I'm just gonna hide these cubes and I'm just gonna create a plane. So you want to create like spaceships and stuff. The big overall shape is really the most important aspect. And you don't have to start with that thing with all kinds of like Boolean and gone trickery or nothing like that. Like you're doing something crazy like something like an X-wing of sorts, some kind of weird ship like this. You can see I just grabbed an edge and I'm extruding it out as I'm in the side view. So hold Alt, jump into the side view after selecting an edge, and then just start extruding. You can do things like that. You can make little adjustments, right? Like, what are you trying to create? How's it supposed to look? That's up to you. Okay. I'm gonna merge these. I don't even know if I want that there like that right now. I think I'm gonna press F, bring these two together, Alt in, flip the normal. Whoop, maybe it was the right way. Yeah, it was the right way. So I use backface colon. Other guys don't. I don't know. It's up to you. I'm gonna use that. So to make sure my normals are facing the right way or not. I don't know if I would even necessarily attach the wings yet. I don't know if I'll do that, but we'll see. I want to get a more interesting design going. Do an X-wing. So maybe we're just playing with silhouette for the most part right now. We'll delete that for a second. Yeah, so I'm gonna delete all of these. I'm gonna pull this one out like this. I go with something more like this for now. We can take edges and dissolve them as well. So if we want something like that, I kind of like the arch in the front. So this is where things get really kind of hairy for a lot of people. First of all, I'm gonna use a mesh machine to do quick symmetrize, and I'm gonna turn this remove redundant center thing off. This thing is problems, just so you know. It's kind of cool what it does, but sometimes it creates errors, and then sometimes it actually erases your center line UV scene, and that can also be a little bit of a problem. So it's kind of, if you ever have that issue, just turn it off. It's fun though, otherwise, like it's pretty neat just when you're blocking out or whatever. But if you're UV mapping, which is what we're going to be doing, it's really problematic. So just get rid of it. Now, I'm going to separate this a little bit. Extrude on Y. Let's pull it out and do this. Okay, so we got some kind of dome shape going. Cool. I'm going to make that a triangle. We're going to need another one down here. So we're going to subdivide this. So we got an edge there. Subdivide this. Or vertex, excuse me. So select the edge, right click, subdivide. It's really not that hard. Okay. So maybe we do turn this into a wing at some point. It looks like it's going to turn into a wing, right? So I'm just going to separate it. Use the machine tool smart face feature, but you can press shift D, P, separate selection, all that fun stuff. If I'm going fast, just try to bear with me. We got a lot of blocking out of stuff to do. So look, we got like that F-117 profile almost going. A lot of these really cool looking airplanes you see, they're based off of what's called a delta wing design. Keep that in mind if you ever wanted to look it up. So really quite simple. I'm just doing a cut here because I'm going to steal this face as well. And like I said, we're going for that F117 thing, kind of. Oh, you know what? Let's not steal the whole face. Let's delete that. Let's take just an edge because that's going to be like the base. Okay. So you should be able to duplicate an edge, separate it, and hit click on it. Sometimes you can hit Alt Q and get it, but I want this aligned. Pull back. This will probably be aligned. So I'm using Machine Tools Align feature. We're just going to town. Try not to get too hung up on anything here. I'm going to use surface snapping real quick because I don't really want this where it is. I want it like that. So shift and mouse button 3 or whatever. Machine Tools Snapping Pie, surface snapping. I kind of went over this a few times. Just face project, median, align rotation to target. That's all it is. It's just snapping like that. So hold control while moving, snap it around. Real simple. This is a non-planar face of sorts, and I'm trying to make sure it's not going to be like causing a lot of air drag, I guess, if it was a somewhat realistic um, machine line vehicle. And it kind of is, so I don't know if that's a good idea like that. So I might just pull it out like this for a second, keep it more in line. I'll have to think of a way to fix that later. I'm going to select the whole face, just press A and extrude. Go with that for now. Maybe this thing actually has people in it too, you know? Maybe it can actually do that. So I'm going to grab all of this down here if I can. I should be able to, but it's not. So let's grab through it. Press F, and it did not join the back. So when I do this symmetrize real quick, it might connect it, it might not, and it didn't. Just so you have to be careful sometimes with things like that. Like it's not so apparent it's going to happen. So you do it, and then you'll find it later usually. So hopefully you don't find it later now. Okay. So this piece can actually, we can mirror it. Use a mirror modifier if you don't have machine tools. Machine tools, you select this, mirror across this. That's our center line, our origin point's established there. That's not too bad. Now you can do like profile checks if you really wanted to. Obviously these wings are thick, but we can flatten them down maybe a little bit more appropriate now. Kind of got like a little global hawk thing going on. These wings are way too far. I'm not gonna say they're too far back. I actually kind of like that, but maybe do something like that. All right. And so you can certainly go in here and start using box cutter for this kind of stuff, but because we're going to be playing with UV maps a lot, when you're using booleans, they have to be destructive for the most part, unless you plan on UV mapping it later. But we're not going to be able to use those materials and kind of look at things as we're working, which is probably the best part of this workflow, anyways, is that you don't have to necessarily rely on that stuff. So I'm going to use a knife tool, hit K instead of doing a boolean, KC. Just going to cut through here real quick. Bring it out like that. And I accidentally created a double there. So I'm doing a lot of symmetrize, and so you're going to use a mirror modifier and apply it a lot probably if you don't have that. But basically you can come through and you just do all kinds of nonsense if you really wanted to. So if you wanted like little angles here, like well, we probably should do this side, but it's a good idea to like stick with one side and only work that one side. Otherwise you'll run into this situation where like um, you don't necessarily want to do that, and then like you'll work a little here, work a little over here, and you need to symmetrize, and you can't. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to do that. Okay, so this one we're gonna knife it out. Not UV mapping yet because Blender's problematic with low poly triangular type stuff. It really hates it. You have to kind of use quads everywhere, and you have to be very methodical with the low poly UV stuff. It just It's weird. I'll put it that way. It's actually it's something deep rooted in Blender. It's like some kind of like hard bug in it. And I'm pretty sure it's a bug. I don't remember any of the other softwares doing it, but it's one of those things. You got to live with it. So like this would be better connected than not connected, right? So even if I went down to like here, let's go to there. We'll dissolve that one. But you start dicing things up. You can do bevels. You can do all kinds of nonsense at this point. Really up to you on what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to do it. All that Ian Hubbard stuff applies at this point. You want to do like basically photo projection of the texture and cut pieces of it out and all that fun stuff you can. We're going to go right to the back, I guess. Wasn't planning on that, but yeah, I guess we are. I don't think I'm going to cut that out though. All right, so let's just do a quick mirror. You can start to see how this comes together, right? Like it's really not that bad. And that's a little too much up there like that, maybe. Do something more like that. Pull that down a little bit more. Okay, it's not going to be perfectly aligned. We got a big non-planar Ngon going on. All kinds of weird stuff going to happen, I promise you. You got to figure all these little problems out, basically. If I cut that, it might help it a bit, but it might just push it forward, which it did. So that happened. I'm going to cut to there, and that's just going to pretty much keep it in place, I guess. You can loop tools. Loop tools has a flatten feature, but usually when you make one non-planar face planar, the other ones become non-planar. It's kind of weird. I mean, it's predictable, but it's kind of bizarre. Like this, like if you took the whole mesh and you did mesh cleanup, there's a make planar faces in here as well. This generally will make things non-planar as well, but you have a factor at least and iterations, so you can run this till you're blue in the face, and it'll try to turn all these faces flat. And it does okay sometimes. It's not too bad. And so let's just symmetrize, get it going. We can cut out really cool details at this point if we wanted as well. I mean, it's really up to you. But you could do, like I said, you can do booleans. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to want to use them destructively. So in this case, right here, maybe I want to run box out this. You can use bevels too. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe I just want to run a little cut down to there. Maybe there's like some kind of intake under here, right? Something like that. So you have to apply that boolean, basically, right? Just Control A over it, or hit the check mark if you got the modifier list add-on. We're in business. You should start to see some kind of designs that are very similar to like a bird or oops, I did the wrong side. We'll be okay for that one, but I want to not do that again. It should be something like a bird, perhaps, or um, like a fish or whatever. Something more aerodynamic of sorts, right? You can see it's got kind of like a little sparrow or something like going on. Shade everything auto smooth. We're going to use that. Matter of fact, if you shade auto smooth, you see the value down here, just crank it max. This is going to tell you if you have good shading or bad shading, right? Right now we have bad shading. We're going to use hard ops to add a weighted normal by doing Q, sharpen, holding Alt at the same time. It adds a weighted normal with keep sharp. Not that that matters really too much, but we can do that to the whole thing right now and just one by one do this. You'll notice a lot of it just doesn't really help it a whole lot. And the reason is because all of these pieces here, we're going to have to, at some point, at least chamfer it, but we can go and bevel it if we wanted it as well. But they're going to have to do that because once you do, it's going to hold its shading, hopefully. But basically, you're going to have to chamfer your edges with at least that little triangle in the middle. That's the big thing, right? So you'll want to do that. Push that in a little bit. for now. You could do that non-destructively, by the way, and it should work still. So like if you were to use a bevel modifier, set a really small bevel to everything, right? And use segments of 1, push the bevel above the weighted normal, all right? So if we do another bevel above the weighted normal, segment of 1, just change the values a tiny little bit. That should help a little bit as well. Might have a little bit of a clipping issue because bevels usually do. You'll have to figure out where it's having issues and solve for those things because this one's probably something like this will kind of geek it up, right? So sometimes you gotta merge those. But that bevel at the very end there doesn't, so the UV maps will never be correct this way, okay? Like as soon as you apply that bevel, all these UV maps will technically be wrong. You do have to be a little bit careful with it. So that's usually why you don't want to do the bevel modifier. But as you're blocking it out, it'll help you determine if you're doing things kind of right, at least, right? You might do it at this point because we're not using the materials in anything yet. And so we're going to get a little bit messy with this and go extremely fast with the other parts of this because we need to get the materials on here, start UV mapping and create some interest and all kinds of other fun stuff. This is a very simple kind of like little aircraft shape, basically. Not really that crazy, right? Some super long wings. I don't know how I feel about that, but all right. So let's see. First up, you can do all this with one on each object. You can just do like one set of materials. So you could do like 3 materials here, the 2 trims or the trim and the seamless, and then do like a glass for this, right? But the other ones you only need the 2, so you could do that if you needed to. But whatever the case, just going to create new plus plus plus. The first one we're going to do seamless. Next one trim, which we didn't name. We probably should have. We'll do trim. Not like that. 01, and then we'll do glass. Last one. We haven't created it yet. Glass is real simple here in Blender at least. So I'm press C, go to material preview. See what's going on here. Let's select these areas that we want glass. Not that one. You can see also that bevel modifier causes a little bit of problems when it comes to selection because like in edit mode, you probably don't want to have it on. And so we'll turn it off here in a sec, but we got all that selected. We go to glass, we can click assign. Yeah, that worked out. Cool. Okay, so we need to change a couple things. We're going to set it to metallic 1. Roughness, we can set down almost perfectly clear, but maybe not perfect. And alpha here, we bump it down a little bit. And transmission, we turn up. Don't necessarily need to change that, but we're going to change it to alpha blend. You could try alpha hash. This alpha blend doesn't work out too well for you. I'm going to do a quick symmetrize, and there we go. And this modifier, this bevel, I'm turning it off in edit mode because it's a little distracting, I think. So if it's, I think it's what's doing it anyway. All right, so that's really thin through here. I don't know if I like that either. Let's see if I can't grab this one. I'm going to assign it to this one here. Okay. So there we go. None of this is UV mapped, obviously. So it doesn't look maybe as best as it could get, but we're going to change that here in a second. So this is where things can get really kind of hairy. You actually have to kind of work with quads, believe it or not, in some respect. Sometimes you need to set out strips of trims or whatever. You're going to have to do that. In this case, this one, we can add UV seams as we work through this. It's not a big deal. UV seams work out quite well. Generally speaking, they're not too bad here. Wasn't sure what was going on back there. I guess that kind of ran into it, huh? Pull that up a little bit. Okay. And so I kind of like the way it's like laid out almost with this like skew to it. You can skew things, you can shift them around. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do. But I'm gonna just select the whole thing and just do a quick, actually, no, we're not. I'm hitting Alt Z, by the way, to turn on X-ray. It's hard to tell, but I'm gonna hit L, okay? And notice right now, when we press L, it selects everything. There's nothing here selected. Sometimes it's set to scene by default. So when you hit L, it might just select by scene, which is great. But we gotta symmetrize it real quick. We press L, now you can see it's only gonna go up to the seam area, basically, right? The shell there. That's kind of what we want, but we can do things by UV too. And check this out, it gets even better. You can do things by scene, and if you hold shift, you can do it by scene, UV, sharp, material. You can do all kinds of different things, or even normal. So keep that in mind. We'll probably adjust that here in a second, but yeah, it works out. Let's go ahead and just press U and unwrap this. Okay, go to the UV editor. What you'll see is it comes in as a shell, right? And if we had unwrapped this and used conformal, it might be okay. It might not, who knows? But you'll want to toggle between conformal and angle based. You have to go through this really quick. Each individual section, you might change it. So you might even turn fill holes off. That's the thing. That's why I made that fill holes video. But you can see like these little shapes that we've created, they weren't really that complicated or anything, but if we scale this up, we're increasing the texel density now, right? And this is probably a good thing for you. But you can see the patterns start to repeat over and over. It creates a little bit of asymmetry, perhaps. If you mirror this over across the way now, if you do a symmetrize or mirror tool, it's going to give you a result like this. Now, generally, this isn't really that bad if you're doing like really low poly stuff with really basic textures. This is fun for maybe mobile. You can do this or something. But when you're doing really grungy textures and you got all kinds of stuff going on, you're going to see the symmetry here clear as day, right? And so in those situations, you have an option. You can do it, but you're probably going to want to place an object on top of this so you hide it. Otherwise, you're going to have to unwrap the whole thing as a unique piece, right? And if you do that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but let's just keep that in mind, all right? Okay, so we got all kinds of cool things going on here. Things you probably never even thought about doing. You can already see popping out at you, right? Like this could be potentially a like an air brake from like an F-18 or something like that, right? That's something that could be there. All kinds of little things just start kind of showing up, and you could take these and move them around and get different results, and you can scale them larger, smaller, whatever. Um, you just want to make sure you're having good texel density. Like you see how that lined up right there by accident almost. Wasn't planning on it, but it did. Okay, and so we could potentially utilize that maybe. All right, this section here, this canopy, I don't think it needs to be the same color as this, so we're going to grab all of it, hopefully. Hit Control Spacebar, you can go full screen real quick. Sometimes it's useful to know that. So let's just do all of this real quick. Go back through. Okay, all the way around, just like that. And this is where it gets fun because we got two materials. We can assign the trim sheet to this one, right? And I haven't even changed the UV map yet, and you can already see some pretty cool interest starting to happen, right? It's already showing up by accident almost. And that's what's so great about this workflow and why so many people like using it. It's really just fun. That's all it comes down to. It's just fun. It's fast too. So, I mean, there's that. I want to change that one to a glass. Okay. And at some point, obviously, if you're doing a much more refined object or piece, you might do things like bevels, right? Something like this, perhaps. In this case, oh, let's try that again. I'm pressing Control B and then V to bevel that vertex. Well, we want to center. Usually, we want a center vertex at least, but a lot of times these elements here, all of these little vertices here, I'm going to hit Alt Z to turn that off. We can just merge them at last. So you press M, merge at last, boom. A lot of times that'll work out, not always. You can maybe dissolve a couple if you need to, but um, you can see it brought the material down with it. I don't want that material there. We're probably going to have to unwrap this area now though, because we just modified it in that manner. And that's a thing, so you might actually have to do that. Okay. So we could press L, and you see we're doing by scene, but we could do by material, right? We could just cube project that again, right? Potentially. Shift it around, see what happens. Maybe we need to mirror it though first. Maybe we want to do it unique. Who knows? Press A twice, unselect all, L, U, cube project, go, scale it up maybe, scale it down, who knows? You see how I can't see the material here? You'll have to swap these all the time. It's kind of annoying, but it's whatever. So if I wanted to find like a very specific area I wanted to use, like if I wanted something like that, you know, not that I think that's a good idea, but you could do it technically. You can also run these in segments, right? Like obviously you could do this whole section like this. This isn't quads though. And so this kind of breaks it right here. We're going to take all of this. I think you might do that, but you might not do that too. So I'm going to merge these back at the last one, which just happens to be the center one. There you go. Because maybe I need the quads. And the reason why is because a lot of times things like this, you're going to press U, unwrap, and you'll get this result. It's not that pretty. You can use things like text tools, by the way, which has a UV layout section. And in this, you should be able to find a rectify button, right? So if you select all this and you rectify, it should straighten it out if it's all quads. In this case, we don't have all quads, so we actually have to do some knife cuts. And we'll figure this out as we go along, which ones are not working. And like I said, those reflections become distracted. Go to solid view. Save you a headache right there, okay? And so now we're in solid view. It's going to be a lot easier to work with. My opinion, of course. All this is my opinion. And we'll just get through it though. Let's Control Z back on that one. That one didn't work out too well. All right. There's so many different ways to work in 3D. It's not like there's necessarily a right and wrong way of doing anything, but there's could be given any kind of like situation that you're working on something, right? Like maybe you're doing characters, you might have to use perfect quad topo, or maybe you're doing, I don't know, characters used to be done in triangles with it's all triangles, so it just depends on how you're laying them out, I guess. Really depends. All right, I'm gonna go to my UV toolkit thing because I actually prefer using this one, but this thing, I guess the guy that made it just stopped selling it for some reason. So I still like it. I think it's the best UV tool set, but it needs a couple updates. Would be perfect. All right, so let's go back to that selection. There we go. Maybe I want to just do like that, like little tabs all over the place. I don't know. Maybe we can scale those down. You can see what's going on there. So this is where things get weird, kind of, because you can technically grab a selection of like vertices and hit Control Shift S here and skew. You see, like you could probably get away with skewing some things. Like if I wanted to line that up, you see what's going on. Like maybe I wanted these two to line up with an angle. I could kind of skew the textures around a little bit, maybe. I don't want to get too carried away, but you'll see that it might generate something that you want, right? So this section here, we can just unwrap it or cube project it. Cube project's fun. It's quick. We can do that. You see everything's kind of at an angle and these aren't, so we might take the whole section and just rotate it. We might do something like that. Who knows? Maybe we rotate it the other way, like that. Boom. See how much different it looks just by doing a quick rotation? Imagine just scaling it too. And then rotating a little bit more. Pull that forward right there. Okay, and then that seems cool, right? But then this backside's ugly. Well, just take the top polygons you don't like. It's just simple, guys. Like I'll just unwrap these ones too. Okay. Maybe I want these ones coming back inwards like that. You can see they don't quite line up. And so that seems pretty noticeable, obviously. You can use decals to cover seams later if you really wanted to. Um, or you can add a chamfer here. Go through it, you see. Now you can just unwrap this. Here we go. There's our section. Rotate it 90 degrees. So hit R's and then just hold control and just snap it 90 real quick. It's real easy. These 90 buttons are cool, but a lot of times they're a little bit meaningless because you can do this very fast without them. All right, so let's change this one to the other material, the trim, and we'll assign it. We'll have a little silver strip through here, perhaps. Maybe we want something like that, right? Or maybe you don't. Maybe that's maybe you want to change it again. Maybe we just take this one down here and assign it so that it has trim on it. Maybe we scale it all down, move it a bit, rotate it even. Yeah, we could maybe get away with something like that, right? Almost. Very customizable kind of workflow, right? Okay. So this thing has no engine right now. We need an engine, guys. And let's take these and make these trim. I don't know why. It seems like a good idea, like a silver material here. So we're just gonna cube project. Actually, this one, I'm gonna add a loop cut right through the middle. Unwrap it. There you go. Do this number real quick. It doesn't even matter if they're overlapping because they're on the other sides of each other usually. That seems like a good idea. Maybe this whole section here is the same. Maybe we did that whole section like that. See? This HDRI probably isn't going to help you much because it's killing the believability of this thing, right? Being down here in the woods or whatever. I'm going to change it to that sky one real quick. See? Well, now it looks a little bit more appropriate. I don't know if I have an air-filled one. I don't think I do. That's close. That's probably that city is probably as close as we're gonna get to that. Oh, is this an airfield? Oh, look at that. It is an airfield. I think. It looks like it's big. It's a big road otherwise. It's a drag strip or something. Anyways. All right, so these help if you turn ambient occlusion up a little to like that, and then change the value to like 1 or 2 or something. So it adds AO in the crevices a little bit more. This reflection in the glass is just shot. There's nothing for it to reflect, huh? Okay, so let's change that glass to be dark. That maybe. Anyways, so we need the engines, like I said. So we're gonna do a cube, rotate. And go back to solid view before I go crazy. All right. Control Shift S, we can skew. Might have to hit X, Y, or Z, just so you know. I'm gonna take these down, scale them flatter. I don't know what's gonna happen here. We're just playing around with it. So I haven't tried this before. I don't know if it's gonna look good. Use just something really bizarre like that. So like a top through underneath the wing thing, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it becomes part of the wing because I didn't know what to do with that wing either, right? So maybe this, we can just move it real quick up there. Maybe this stays against the body like that. And then this comes to the point right here. Snap to surface. Okay. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Skew that back down. We're almost got like a F-117 thing going on for sure. It's very similar-esque. Not a horrible thing. It's a cool aircraft, but maybe not what I wanted. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to dissolve that one and this one. So it becomes kind of like streamlined again. Push it out a bit. Scaling. Okay. Hue projecting this one. And we need to apply material to it. Can inset here, extrude. Normally you'll have like a dark spot on your textures. And so you can take a face like this, and if you press U and you unwrap it, and you can find that dark area of the texture, you can just move it around and into this thing, right? Wherever it might be. In this case, these little crevices were dark, and you can see it doesn't really show up here because we need that other material. But we can assign that to that material, boom. And that's about as good as that's going to get right there. You see? So this can also mirror over for now. This is obviously not a finished kind of model, but you can see how fast this is starting to come together, right? There's just a few things I want to mention here before we end this video. I'll let you finish working on it, on your own, pretty much, to get everything going the way you want it. But let's not select that. Let's select only this. We're going to cube project that again. I want to tweak that real quick. I don't like the way it was looking. Yeah, something like that maybe. Okay, so there's something I want to mention here is that when you're modifying your mesh, you're going to do a lot of remapping probably. I just have a feeling you will. But if you see how like I'm moving the texture or moving the vertex here and it's shifting the texture around, sometimes you want this, but sometimes you don't. If you come up here, you can use correct face attributes and you can use keep connected as well. This is going to try to keep the UV map connected. A lot of times it might mess up. You might have to not use keep connected, but a lot of times it works out really well where you can start to move this geo. So I press G and Y, for example, it doesn't shift the UV maps a whole lot. And so that is going to help you out there a little bit. Now, things like this as well, like you can see I can use the knife tool to come through here. And as soon as I make a cut, a lot of times your UV maps will shift a little bit. That's what I was whining on about earlier, where I was talking about like you need the quads. A lot of times you got to finish out kind of like a whole cut and make nice little quad sections. That's just something that's unique to Blender. Most of the other software I don't think really has. That was an accident. What happened there? Oh, I symmetrized. I symmetrized the wrong way, I think. It just did whatever it wanted. Yeah, look. Okay, we'll go with that, sure. Kind of interesting. Not what I want. I forgot this is mirrored, so we don't need to do that. All right, so if you use a knife tool, though, and you run around and you cut things out like that, a lot of times you can come back, and if you did it very diligently, cut in just the right areas and all that fun stuff, you can usually get back, and we're going to merge that one up there. You can see if we merge, it shifts the UV. If we have correct face attributes on, it doesn't. So we can actually use vertex snapping now and just, you can see, hold control. Boom, that's a trick for you. That should work out pretty well for you. You can, certain things don't matter, like if you GG twice and you do like a vertex slide or edge slide, it doesn't mess anything up. So usually those don't mess it up. Using the knife tool now, we can put the cut down here. That's why I was talking about all that cool Ian Hubbard stuff. This is pretty much when you're going to start using that stuff if you wanted to kind of approach it in that manner at least. So, but you can see this is the fun part, right? This little section we just selected, I can inset it, and that doesn't mess the UVs up generally. But if you inset it just a little bit far enough, you can hold control and pull it out a bit. Can't get away with too much of this, but you can do a little bit, and it make things look really nice by the end of it, I'm sure. So maybe this front section, I just want to line that up with that line there. You see, it doesn't quite line up the way I wanted, but it's close. And so other times you might legitimately come through areas like this later on. I'm going to add a knife cut all the way through. KC all the way through like this. And so I'm going to forward slash to get out of isolation. But this section here, just these ones, probably all the way down too, but I don't know yet. We'll see. Yeah. There's a big triangle somewhere. I don't know what I selected, but there it is. Is this one? No, it's this one up here at the top. So G and Y. Okay, so sometimes you can get away with, you grab a single vertex, you can see we can shift and skew things, right? Like this as well. So purposefully distorting your UV map doesn't seem like a good idea until you realize like it might be a brilliant idea. Just depends. Like how much, how, is anybody going to really see this section of this vehicle? Maybe, who knows? If you rotate like an edge, you see how I can kind of skew it and pull it around. I hit GY. Might get away with this to line this up. I don't know. It might happen. It could happen. By the looks of it, it doesn't want to. Now, these two edges together, what happens if I do that? No, probably not. Probably need one more cut right through here. More down to the bottom that I can't see right now. So you might be able to get away with this though. And that's the cool part about it. I want this edge to go along with this thing. See if this one helps. Yep, there you go. Look, just a slight skew. That's all it does. We can actually adjust that corner as well. Maybe pull it all the way through. Who knows? What about this one if we had pulled it on G and X? Some really bizarre stuff, right? Not always recommended, but I'm gonna tell you, if you can get away with it, you might as well do it. It doesn't matter. Usually it doesn't matter. Depends on the part of the vehicle you're working on or whatever. Let's change it to something a little bit more interesting with lighting. Let's see what's going on here. So, like a studio light. That's not that interesting. Let's do. I have like a galaxy, I think. Like oh, I got a night scene too. You can't see nothing though. That's one of the Pixar ones. Pixar has some HDRIs. I don't think the free ones, these free ones in particular, not all of them are really that great, but it's fun having the different lighting settings, light setups with like night lights and things like that, right? Pixar has a little resource section, which is quite good. I'm gonna blur the background because it's distracting me, but I do like the lighting of this one a lot. So yeah, there you go. If you want to play around with this more, you can spend a minute doing this. You can do weird stuff like this sometimes. Like maybe you want to keep that. You like just like that one section. You can cut that, grab all this over here, and then maybe like recube project this, rotate it, do something like that maybe. I don't know. You can even like flip things. So you could do like mirror Y. There you go. So you might do that to bring these sections to the back. So these are like some like oversized flap stuff going on or something. I don't know. You want to make it smaller and just do that. Really, really good for like low poly or web-based games to do this kind of thing. It's just really fast, especially when you don't need a lot of detail and it's more stylized in nature. That's a little too much, I think, right? I don't know which way I'm going with this, but make it bigger. Bring it down again. I can tell what I'm doing. I would think the leading edge wouldn't have any big like notches in it, but I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of one. I think that back edge is the most important thing here. Yeah, so we'd have to figure out a way to work this area a little bit differently, I think. Maybe just that one section. I want some interest there, but I don't want it to be too crazy. I need a little line here in the back. Yeah, so this is where you find out if your trim sheets work well for you or not. In this case, this almost doesn't work that well for this type of model, but you can see it almost doesn't. Like you can just keep going, have a lot of fun with it. This canopy is really flat. Noticing how flat that thing was, so let's knock that out. It's got a cool profile, but I think it just needs to be raised up a little maybe. Just do it by these vertices then. Yeah, a little bit like that. Much better, I think. Don't forget to weight your normals and shade auto, smooth, and all that fun stuff, right? And if you have to, at the very end, add the bevel. Well, before the weighted normal, anyway. Right, and so here's the thing, the main takeaway. You can do this very fast, and you can do this for a very long time. Like we've been going at this for an hour and 20 minutes, but we barely just got started with this. So it's fun to get this kind of thing started at least. You know, obviously like we could if you're making an indie project and you're just learning how to do games, like this is almost acceptable for that, right? If you just want to make like a little thing fly around or whatever. It's not real good, but it's a placeholder for sure. So you could use this into the future. But if you want to make like super detailed stuff, like you're going to use decals later in your game engine of choice, and do that, and you can start adding things like little hooks or whatever to the surface here. And I'm using decal machine for this, but you can use whatever you want. Yeah, I gotta adjust that a little. Have to project it. Now, decal machine doesn't do the colors if you're using textures under it, as far as I'm aware. You can just change them to something else, maybe like black or something. And now see what's going on. So this is getting towards that more that Star Citizen type workflow where they're doing lots and lots of decals, right? That just might be a thing, you know, it could happen. Might want that workflow. I don't know why there would be a hook there, but this decal makes sense here. I always forget the hotkeys, but we're going to project it now and adjust it. There you go. So D, A, D, D, and that's pretty much it, all you do. And then, what was it, control middle mouse wheel or something to rotate it or something. Oh, yeah. Let's do something. There's actual trims in here you could also try to use, but let's do this one on the wing maybe. So DA and then shift mouse wheel. Yeah, that's scale it. DA adjust it. D and D, you can project it. You see, it takes on a little bit of the stuff underneath it a little bit. Well, maybe it was clipping, but EA, we can't do nothing with now. We have to press get back up, which is B, and then we hold Alt to do that so it doesn't leave a duplicate there. And this would probably be better over here, maybe. A little bit smaller, perhaps. Right? Oh, let's reproject that real quick. DA, bring it up. Boom. Okay. Let's see about one more maybe, or a couple more. Let's see what we got down here hiding. Drain. Yeah, can be a drain in here. Sure. Do a caution. G, control, scale, DA. Oh, just mouse wheel. You don't have to hold shift, apparently. Press DD. Oh, hold Alt, get it back up. Want to adjust it? Hold shift to do it smaller amounts. Okay, and so let's make it bigger. A little bit. D. And we'll do DD project. So DA now. We can lift it out of there a little bit, maybe. The non-planar face, so I think it's struggling a little bit. Yeah. The little edge there that I accidentally got it on, so let's get that back up real quick. We'll put it over here instead. It should have a little bit of better time there. Okay. So we're probably going to get it back up, and we're going to reapply. Replace it on the surface, hopefully. DDA. It's floating a little bit because it's a non-planar face, I think, but it shouldn't have that big of a challenge with it. I don't know why it is. Okay. Let's do the project. D. Okay. There you go. You got to adjust it a little bit before you do it, maybe. Yeah, there's probably a few other settings I don't know about. I don't usually use decal machine a whole lot, but the same kind of process would take place, right? So that might get mirrored if you can. I don't even know if you can mirror these things. Yeah. You can see we mirrored it. It is now backwards here, though. If you apply that mirror, you should be able to grab that, I think. And just this one object. Control M, middle mouse click. I don't know if this is going to work, but. Oh, why does it seem right now? I thought it was backwards. Maybe it's right. The mirror works. I don't know how it works, but it works. Whatever. Anyway, so there we go. Learned something new. Let's put some Blender logos on this thing. As you know, it needs the Blender logo right there. And we're going to try that again. We're going to do the project real quick. We're going to try doing a mirror. See if that works. Yeah, machine's crazy. He did something here, right? To have the have them swap like that. Pretty wild. Anyways, let's make this one base color here is kind of set. I don't know if we can get rid of that, but I think we can. Yeah. See? And we need to press DA and just bring it up a bit. So it doesn't clip as much. adjust the lighting. There we go. And so yeah, work this more. Have fun with it. Don't get too caught up in this like models have to be super proper thing right away because if you're feeling stuck, especially like you just don't know how to get a project started, you don't know what you want things to look like or what you need a model. Um, this is just a trick that a trim sheet, a seamless texture helps a lot, but you can even use photographs. Like you just take a photo, throw it onto a model, see what it looks like, and see if you can pull or extrapolate details out of it as you're doing it, right? So this like blocking process with texture is actually really good. Um, this obviously isn't like a fully finished, fleshed out game model. Like I said, we're not going to probably get through the whole thing. It's a long video, right? Like we're at an hour and 30 minutes now. Usually I try to keep my videos about like an hour max. But in reality, this hopefully opens you up to the idea of creating things in this manner, right? So when you watch other guys do this kind of stuff, you'll be like, okay, I kind of get what's going on now. Because next thing you know, they're literally going crazy, and I don't know, they might create like a Bezier curve, and they might take the, I'll see if we can get back to the Bezier curve. They might go into edit mode with it, delete the whole spline or the curve, and then they'll use like a draw tool even. I think it's the draw tool, right? Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure it wasn't the annotate tool. They'll set the bevel size here, depth, and then they might just start like on their spaceship designs doing things like this where, whoops, it's not drawn on the surface. Let's change it to surface. Might start doing things like that, creating like pipes and stuff, all kinds of stuff on their spaceships. Very simple. Um, this is intersecting with the surface here. You can actually tweak this somewhere in here as well, so you can change it to have an offset, right? So the next time you do it, it won't be into the surface. So we can Control Z back. Now it should be offset. Maybe this wasn't a hook. Maybe it was something else. Okay. And I got this nice hose going on. Maybe there's a bunch of other stuff that needs to happen, but it's really fun stuff, right? It seems complicated to you realize like, hey, it's not really that complicated. This would probably get a dedicated part of a trim or rubber or hose or whatever, right? So I'm just going to create a new material for it for now, but it'll probably get mirrored over as well. Yep, and then so there you go. Add some lights to it, some emissive textures maybe, I don't know. See how far you can push it. Do this a few times over, start to finish, just blocking out, modeling, pushing around with correct face attributes. Have fun, okay? It's supposed to be fun. 3D modeling, if it feels like a chore and a task, you're not having fun, it means there's a reason why. It's just you're either learning or you're in a rut or you're burnt out or something. But anyways, hopefully you learned something in this video. Take what you can from it, apply it to whatever workflows you find that work well for you as well. Like there's no one way fits all type of workflow necessarily either. And have fun with it, all right? So I'll check you guys out in the next one. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Tell me what you think of this video. If I should do maybe something more similar to this in the future, all right? Take care, guys.